Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at Bitbucket for version control for development purpose. Bitbucket Cloud is one of the free offering that is available. There is GitHub and GitLabs and other remote repository which has free offerings too. Bitbucket now gives you a private repository where others cannot see your code with 5 developers for free. So you can check it out in their website and create an account. That's what I did for my personal reasons. And also I used Git to install it in my machine. Git is like something that you need to install in your machine. You could have a Windows or a Mac or a Linux. It doesn't matter. You would install the Git so that it can communicate to a remote repository like a Bitbucket or a GitLab or GitHub. So I went ahead and installed Git in my machine, and I had a cloud offering of Bitbucket account setup in Bitbucket. So those are the prerequisites for this training purpose. So I have set it out personally. So let's get started. Before we get started into pulling the code or merging or resolving a conflict, I wanted to show you what I described earlier, like in a picture. So you have a machine where your Git is installed, and then you have this remote repository in the cloud, and then you use all these commands that I threw all over my machine inside that box. So if you see, there is these orange commands and then there's brown commands. I want to kind of differentiate that, because some of these commands, like when you run it commits the code into your local machine. It creates a branch in your local machine, and some of the commands like talks to the remote repository. So you don't have to remember all the commands in Git. You do have to only remember few commands, which I will be going through, and it's just handful of commands. And I would prefer everyone to learn this command, because it doesn't matter then what platform you're in, which OS you're in, which machine you're in. As long as you do have a remote repository and a Git installed, you can rock it. Like you can run this command and get the job done. So it's always good to know this. And the fun part is there's only like 6-7 commands you have to know on top of your head to get this ball rolling. So I would recommend you to kind of get used to it, or put it in a notepad somewhere and use it once until you get used to it. Once you get used to these commands, you don't have it's a bread and butter of your life. As a developer, it helps you to work every day using this command. So let's dive into looking at these commands. Let's get started by creating a repository in the Bitbucket. So I'm going to click on the plus button. I'm going to say I'm going to create a repository. I'm going to pick the project, which is Bitbucket demo. I created a project already before this session. So I'm going to name this as Bitbucket with CommandLine. You can make it a public or a private repository. I'm going to make this a private repository in this case. And I'm going to click on create repository. So it created an empty repository. You could have created a readme file when you created the repository, but I did not. And you can use the HTTPS or the SSH. The advantage of SSH is, if you're going to use this machine or any machine regularly for working, I would set up an SSH key. I will have another video put how to do SSH key, how to set up an SSH to talk to a Bitbucket repository. But if you use HTTPS, you may need to type in the password each time, which I don't like to whenever I'm communicating. So I already set it up an SSH in my machine. So I'm going to take this SSH command and I'm going into my code directory, and this is where I'm going to have this. And also I'm going to use Visual Studio Code in order to do all this demo purpose. This is one of the favorite IDE for all open source developers nowadays. One of the favorite, at least. I'm a little biased as I'm coming from a Microsoft background, but you can use it for Java, Go, Node.js, basic HTML, .NET, Python, Rails on Ruby, R language. So any language you're thinking about, you could use this. So I'm going to open the folder um, into the directory, but we didn't yet create the project. So one of the cool thing for about the Visual Studio Code is that it has a terminal at the bottom, so you can type in all your crazy command line tool at the bottom while on the top you're coding. And this demo it's very useful because I would be able to show you as I change the code and check in and check out in one screen to walk through this demo. So I'm going to cd into my D drive, I'm going to cd into my code, I'm going to clear the screen so that it's on the top. Now what we are going to do is, like, we are going to clone the directory. So we copied already the command as I showed you, and then you're going to paste it. So once you paste it, you're going to clone this repository Bitbucket command line into my machine. So I cloned it. Since I had the Git already set up, it didn't ask the password. If you are doing through the HTTPS, it will ask the password each time. Keep in mind that when you use HTTPS, it's going to ask you every time. There is a get around to go to git config and not to prompt it. The better way is to use this, such as if you're going to use this machine for a long time for your development purpose, and it's much safer too. So the next thing I'm going to do now is that since it is cloned, so I'm going to open this folder now and going to say select folder. So it just opened my folder, and you know that it doesn't have anything in the project. So since we are going to use the command line, let me again open the command line here. So now if you say git status, it says that it's in a master branch and it has nothing created yet. So in order to start this, let's create a simple file called demo.txt. Now this simple file, I'm going to put some words here. I like to eat Indian food. So now the git status generally checks on the status. So if you go to the command prompt again and say git status, sorry, I mistyped it. It says that there is a file called demo.txt which got created, and it's been not tracked, or it's unstaged, we call it as. In order to stage them or track them, you may need to add the project files using the git add command. So I'm going to clear the screen again and then say git add, and since there is only one file, you could say git add demo.txt, or you could say demo git add dot, which means it adds all the file. As a developer, you might be adding a multiple files. I would encourage you to use the git add dot so that you can add all the files. So I'm going to say git add all, and now I'm going to say git status. Now if you see, it turned, the red turned green in a pretty UI, and it also says that the new file has been added and it's been staged or tracked. The next thing, once you're done with that, the next thing you need to do is commit. This is one of the important commands in Git. Whether you use any other tool, generally the commit is very important as you're committing this code into the Git. Now you are just dealing with Git. You didn't yet talk to the Bitbucket yet. All you did so far, even the commit you're going to do git commit and this command, and you're going to send a message saying that this is my first check-in. So all these commands, you're still talking to Git. You didn't yet do anything with the Bitbucket yet. So for example, when you do that, this gets committed to the Git. And if you check now the git status, let me clear my screen, git status, it says that there is nothing to commit, working tree clean, so it's all committed. Now if you want to push it, you need to push it up, because this change that you just adding a demo text file and adding this text to it, it's not there yet. Like if you make a refresh here, it's not here yet. So you still need to do few more steps to get it over there. So the commands that we just saw is git status, to always check the status where your code is, and git add dot or whatever the file names are, and the third command that we saw was git commit -m and put the message in. All of this commit talks to the git and makes a commit to the git. So now the next big step we are going to do is the demo.txt file that we just added. I'm going to push that into the remote repository. For example, so I'm going to say git push, and where am I going to push? Origin master. So what this means is that I'm going to push this git into the master. The origin is kind of the connection, and say push it to the master in the remote branch. So there's nothing here yet, so it's going to create a master branch. It's going to push that code called demo.txt into the remote branch when we run this command. So when you say enter, so if you see this, it just connected to it and pushed your local master branch, all the commits you had or the last commit, into the remote master branch. So if I go to the browser and now I refresh my screen, voila, the demo.txt is in the remote branch. So we did two things now here. If we scroll up through the commands, to just reiterate, we just checked on the status, and then we went ahead and added the file. This file was not yet added when we checked the git status, and then we added the file using the git add dot command, and then the last command was the git commit command, saying that we checked in. This is my first check-in. All these three commands did like a communication between your code and your git, and then to push the code you said git push, and you said push it to this branch in the cloud. Since it is already, you cloned it, it knows that it should be pushing this code into this repository in the cloud, and it ended up in creating a branch called master and pushing your code. This is how you would commit a code and push it to a branch. Let's now talk about how to create different branches and how to work with branches. The reason you would have multiple branches is when you're working for an enterprise organization, there are different kinds of Git flows or branches, methodology, branching, modeling methodology that you could use, but I'm going to use the most common and the standard practice by most of the enterprise nowadays. So we are going to have basically three branches. Maybe it depends on, if there is only one developer, there will be a third branch called future one, but you would have a master branch, which is going to be your production code, and then you're going to have a dev branch, which is going to be your development code. And some people tend to work with just two branches, but my recommendation is that you should create a third branch, or how much ever developers you have. Let's say you have 10 developers, you would have 10 branches for each developer as a future branch, because the Bitbucket, one of the good thing about Bitbucket is it has something called as pull request. So if you open this, there's a concept called pull request, where you can, whenever you want to merge, from your development branch, from your future branch into your development branch, you need to do a pull request so that someone can do a code review and make sure your code is good before it goes into your development branch, so that the testing would be done in the development branch and the code would be pushed into the master branch. I always recommend everyone to, I kind of have that separation out so that it's much cleaner. So it doesn't mean the other approach is bad. It's just like it's different kind of way of creating branches, and the more the developer you have, it's better. And also, if you're using Bitbucket, if you're going to try to use all the bells and whistles that Bitbucket has to offer, you need to have like another branch so that you can do a pull request before you do a merge and ask someone to review the code before the merge happens. So if you are more of a code review, if your team is more about code review, I would recommend to use some of these pull requests and the code review process around it. In most of the nowadays, like GitHub, GitLabs, or any offerings that we have in cloud, which is free or enterprise, kind of is becoming very basic to have pull requests. So the route we are going to take, as I said, is going to be a master branch, which is going to be your production code. Then you have a dev branch, which is going to be your development code, and then each developer has their future branch, and then you will do a pull request to merge into the development branch. Let's get started by creating branches now. So the first thing we are going to do here is going to go here. I'm going to clear the screen so that we can go to the top of this. So now, before we get working with the branches, one thing I would like you to see is to see all the branches that you have. You generally, the command that you need to use is git branch. So it says that you have only one branch, and that's where it's pointing to now, and it is the master branch. So git branch always gives you the list of branches that you have in your system. So in order to create a branch, generally you could use git branch and a branch name here, or there is another command which I'll be showing a little later. So in the second example, so let's create a develop branch. Like as I said, let the master be your production code, and let's create a develop branch. Now we created two branches. Let's check how many branches we have. So it says you have two branches, and it's still pointing to the master branch. So I'm going to clear the screen so that it's a little cleaner. So since we are going to work a lot with branches, I'm going to make this bigger so that you can see it neat. So let's now check out into a branch. What do you mean by check out? So you don't want to work on a master branch. So if you check on your branch, you are in the master branch. Generally, there should be no developer sitting in a master branch unless he is doing a hotfix, which you need to create a hotfix branch from it. So anyways, you should be never on a master branch. So in order to me to switch to this, you should say git checkout and give the branch that you want to go. So now it says switch to branch dev. Now if you check the status of the branch, it should now say develop branch, because now you are in the develop branch. Since now you are in the develop branch, I'm going to show another way how to create a branch and checkout. So in order to do this into two commands, so in this case what you did was, if I scroll up, you just created a branch and then you checked it out using this command. So you did two things. There's another way you can do. So I'm going to create a future branch. As I said, as a developer, if you're working for an enterprise, you should never be working on the development branch. You would be working in a future branch, and it depends on where you're working and how your branching strategies are. But I'm going to, in this example, create a future branch. But I'm going to use a different command, and I would prefer you to use this command versus the other command because it does two things at the same time. You can say git checkout -b and then say future test1. So that's my future branch that I'm creating. What this command does is it creates a branch and checks out into that branch. So it does two things. It does whatever you did, those two commands into one. So it's better always to use this command. So you see, it switched it to this. So it created a branch and switched to it. If you want to check that what I said is what it is, it shows the green one and a star means you're checked out into this branch. Let me clear my screen now again so that we can move on to the next one. So I'm going to create a dummy branch and I'm going to delete it. Okay, so let's say I say git branch and I'm going to say demo delete branch. So it should, if you check on the branch now, it should have created that branch. So now I want to delete that branch, which I did by mistake. So the command for deleting a branch would be git branch minus d and give the branch name like the you know to delete whatever branch you want to, which is demo delete branch. So this branch got deleted, and if you check the branch, you should have only 3 branches. So now we worked with 3 branches. Now we know how to create a branch, delete a branch, see the list of branch, and also check out into a branch. Those are the few commands that we learned just now. So as of now, what we have done so far is that we have created, cloned and committed, created a branch and checked out into a branch. These were the commands, some of the commands we went through. Now we are going to look at fetch, pull, push, which we kind of saw earlier, how to push your code from your local machine into the remote thing. And you already know what pull means. You're pulling the code from the remote branch into your machine and then merge. These are the last 4 important commands that you need to know. There are other commands that it's good to know, but these are the last 4 commands that you would be not using the fetch, and I will kind of explain at eye level what fetch and pull means. Fetch is a safe command. It doesn't do a merge of the code. It just pull, if there is already commits made into the remote repository, it just pulls it down to your local machine. It doesn't merge the code. The pull is not a safe command. It does 2 things. It does get fetch and get merge together. That's all what pull does. It does 2 git commands together. So it fetches and also merges, pulls all the code down and merges from your remote repository into your local machine if there is a code merge that needs to happen. So it is not a safe command, but what I would say is that you would end up in using the git pull than git fetch. Generally I tend to use always the git pull as a developer, and then you already learned what git push means. You're just pushing your local changes into your remote branch. And git merge, by the name it says, be in the branch where you need to merge, and say git branch into development would pull down all the development code and merge it into your branch, where like a future branch that you're sitting on. So these are the 4 important commands that you need to know, and let's get into it, and you will better understand if you walk through some of this with an example. Then it's very easy for you to understand that. So now going back to our example, let me clear the screen. Git branch. So now we are sitting in the branch called git future text 1. All these branches were created locally, and if you go to remote and you try to see the source code now for our command, there is only one branch in the remote repository, because all we did was creating the branches in your local machine. It doesn't mean that those branches are created in the remote repository. So it's just one command. You can just say git push and then say enter. So sorry, now you need to git push whatever branch you want to push it up. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push each one of the branches into the cloud. So let's get started. Git push, I'm going to say origin future test 1. It pushed that. So now I'm going to say git checkout develop. Enter. So I want to clear my screen so that you can see what I'm typing. Now I am checked out into the develop branch, and now I say git push you origin develop. You pushed what you had in the development 2 into the Bitbucket. So now when you go to the Bitbucket and refresh your screen, you should see 3 branches that you have: develop, master, and future. And coming back to your Visual Studio, you're going to work on your future branch. So I would say git branch future test 1. Sorry, I need to be checking out into it. We already have the branch, so I'm going to just check out into this future branch. So now I am checked out. I'm going to say git branch, make sure I'm in the right branch. Yes, I'm in the future branch. Let me clear my screen. So I am in my future branch. Now I would like to make some code changes. As a developer, you would be assigned some work making a code change. So let's say I'm going to say I also love to eat Italian food. So you made a change, and you know now the routine. You need to check on git status. There's a changes made. I'm going to say git add, and you can now do 2 commands at one line by using this AND operator. So I'm going to say AND, I'm going to say git commit, I'm going to say message future 1 first check in. So you added a new future, you are in the future branch, you are adding and then committing those together at one command. And then you can say git push you origin future test 1. So if you now go into your repository, you should be able to see that your future branch has one more extra line of code that says I also love to eat Italian food. So like what next we are going to do is we just learn how to push and how to pull from the repository. And I generally tend not used to we don't tend to use the fetch command, as I said. So let's now do a merge. So let's say you're done with the development in your future branch and you're ready to merge into a development branch so you can have the testing started. And this is very interesting because, as I said, one of the benefits of using Bitbucket is to use the pull request. So you're now, before even you do a pull request, what I would recommend is to come to the screen and see this, and there's a way to compare 2 branches. So let's say you have 2 branches, so you're going to compare your development and future and compare. When you do that, if you see the diff, it will say that there's a new line, this line and this line are the same, but then there is a new line that got added which says I also love to eat Italian food. So that's the demo branch. So it kind of shows you what the new line is and kind of highlights you some of that. Ignore white space, and you can just do some of these things. So since there was white space, it didn't show clean, but this is much better. It shows you that the development branch here has a code of I like to eat Indian food, and then if you see the future branch, the code changed to have this extra line of code. So you feel comfortable as a developer, you kind of compared that. You can use this IDE to do some of these, and once you feel comfortable, you just come here and say I want to do a pull request. So now you need to say from where to where you're doing a pull request, from to. So you're going to do a pull request from your future branch. If you're going to do a pull request from your future branch, try to merge your code in your future branch into your development branch. So you need to say that I'm trying to merge my code from my future branch into my development branch, and then you can put whatever you want, saying that um, hello reviewer, hello reviewer, I would like you to review my code and see if it looks good. And then you can pick the list of reviewer. In this demo, I don't have another user who could review my code. I could have tried that, but I'm going to just assume that I'm going to review my own code, which is not, when you are working for an enterprise, you would not do that, but for in this case, it doesn't matter. So, and also you can say that once the pull request is merged, do you want to close this future branch? Because it's already merged into the development branch and you have all the history, so do you want that future anyway? So I'm not going to close it now because I might want to show a little more demo with this future, so I'm going to leave that. But generally in enterprise, you're going to give a reviewer who needs to review, and mostly you're going to close the future branch if you're done with the development. So for now, for simplicity's sake, as I don't want to log in as another user, I'm going to leave this as empty, but I'm going to review my own code, which doesn't tend to happen in an enterprise level setup. So now it's now created a pull request. So like hypothetically, if I am the reviewer, I would get, let's say, an email, or you set up something, I would log in and I go to this repository. I should be able to see that there was, if I was the reviewer there, it would show 1, 2, whatever code you need to review. You would click on it and click, oh, I need to review this code. Oh, actually, I could have put myself as a reviewer. Let me see that, if you let me do that. So I'm going to say Praveen. No, it doesn't let me put me as a reviewer. So yeah, you might need to put someone else as a reviewer and they would be able to see the notification on their end. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to just say I'm going to review my own code here. So imagine that another person would come in, and I'm not the admin, right? Since I'm admin, I'm able to do everything, but they would come in and say, oh, Praveen wants to, okay, they want to review this code. Let me go here and see, oh, he made some commits here. Okay, that makes sense. And then he would see the activities and he would see what he changed and stuff like that. Overall, what he's trying to do, and it shows all the code that got changed. So I generally tend to say ignore white space, so that if there is white space, it ignores and says that this is the only new line that got added. And then I will generally used to see this side by side. So as a reviewer, I feel very comfortable and I go and approve this. Once the reviewer approves it, then I would, as another developer, I would again, since in this case I'm not doing that, but once that is approved, when I log out and log back in, let's say in this example, I log out and then I would log back in. I come next day to my work, I go in and I say, see my pull request. It would say that it got approved, so I can now merge the code. So once the approval happens, I generally don't recommend anyone to merge the code using this IDE because it's not that cleaner, and especially if you're having resolve conflict, it gets into a very difficult for you to see the code and see compared to code. It's very difficult in a browser, in an HTML browser, to kind of look and compare the code. So I don't tend to merge the code unless it's a very simple merge and you know what you're doing. Then I would recommend you use this, but otherwise I generally, once this is done, we will go back to our IDE generally to merge the code. So let's see which branch we are checked out. We are in the future branch, and generally before you merge anything, what I would recommend you to do is to put git, always pull all the branches so that you pull everything up to date. So when you say git pull all, what it does is anyone who made commits into your repository, if there are 30 people working on a project, it pulls everything down. It's like getting the latest from all the branches. And I would recommend you to do that just to be safe. At least for the branch you want to do. If you want to just do it for the branch you are interested in this case it would be the dev branch, because you are the developer. If you are the only developer in your future branch, you don't have to worry. But if you want to just do the pull from the remote on your dev branch, the command is, so at least I would recommend you to do this before you merge with the development branch, so that any other commits that happen gets pulled down before you merge. So now all you need to do is simple steps. All you need to do is git merge and then say develop. Since you are in the future branch, you are merging in the development branch, it will take everything in the development branch and merge it into your future branch. So I would always recommend you to do this, so that you get the latest code from the development branch into your local machine, so that you always are up to date with your future branch. So you didn't have anything in the development branch to merge with the git branch, with your future branch now. Because if you go to the repository and you look at the if you look at the source code and go to your development branch, you didn't make any changes, so there's nothing to merge. You just made a change in your future branch, but the development branch has only one line of code. So when you do this, it's going to be fine, because you don't have anything changed in the development branch. But if you now want to merge your future branch into your development branch, what you need to do is to git checkout develop. So git branch, let me clear my screen. I say git branch. Now I am in my development branch. As I said, always pull the code down and also do a merge with the development code, like how we did before. If you see, we were checked out in the future branch and then merged with the development branch, because I want all my latest code to be in the future branch before I merge my future branch into my development branch. It's kind of like getting latest from the development branch into the future branch, and then you're merging the future branch into the development branch. Since already you did a pull request saying that you want to merge your future branch into the development branch, you can just go here and say git merge future test1. So it went ahead and merged your future branch into the development branch now. So if you go to the repository and check now your development branch, it should okay, let me go here, and now we were in the development branch and then merged our code from the future branch into the development branch. Oh, we also need to push that. Even though we merged, we didn't yet push it. That's why we did not see it there. So let me do that. So origin. So I'm going to push my development branch, because I just merged my future branch into my development branch. Now when I see this, get refresh. So I may go to my development branch and I'll go to my, see, all my changes came over. So I know it's kind of a lengthy tutorial, which is important too. I'm going to go back and reiterate some of the important points here. So we were in the future branch, we added this line of code and we checked in and we were good. And then what we did is we wanted to do a code merge into the development branch. So we did a pull request by going into this and did a pull request saying that I want to merge my code which is in the future branch into the development branch. It went through an approval process, someone approved it, compared the code, and they were fine letting you add this code into the development branch. Generally it's always very important to do a pull request when you go from bottom to top. Just keep that in your mind, and you might get confused, why are we merging twice? So whenever you go from bottom to top, right, like whenever you go from for example, whenever you go from your future branch into your development branch, you need to do a pull request, because that's a standard practice that someone checks in as a developer. You do a code review and do that. Whenever you're merging the code from the development to future, it's safer because you're not hurting the development or the master branch. You're just bringing back all the changes in the development branch back into your future branch, which is always safe. So that's why I let, like when I did before this code, if you have seen me, what I did is I said git merge develop, because I was in my future branch. So I was sitting on my future branch and I said merge all the code from the development, which is okay, because all I'm saying is move all the, if there is 10 developers who put new code, you need to get the latest from the development into your future branch. So I just got the latest, right? So it's always okay to do that. And one thing I did, I should have done this before I did the pull request, because it's safer that your code is latest and greatest. I would recommend that you do this thing before you do the pull request. In this example, I ended up in doing after, which is not a good practice, I would say. Generally what I tend to recommend people is to do this get merge into development branch just before, 10 minutes before you do the pull request, so that you have the latest code in the development merged into your future, so it's safe that you are very close to the development branch. So I would recommend, before even you try to click this button, the first thing you need to remember is to go ahead and merge with development, just to be safe, to see that if there is any other developer then checked in, you would get the latest. And I didn't have that use case. Didn't have another developer. I didn't ignore to do that in this demo, but I would recommend you guys to do this so that you get the latest from the development branch before you do the pull request and someone does the code review, and then do the merge from the development, be in the development branch, sitting on the development branch, and say that pull all the code in the future branch into the development branch, like how we did it, like in this example. So what we did was we moved all the future code into the development branch after the pull request was approved and the code review was done. So that's the cool thing, that we went through a whole cycle of almost code review, pull request, getting latest from the when you're working on the development in the future branch. Let's say it take 10 days. Every morning when you come to office, you would say, or whenever you work and you feel like you need to be having the latest code, you need to you need to pull it down, like take it from the dev and push it down to the future branch, so that you have the latest code other developers checked in, or maybe they might have added a library that you need to use. So it's always good to do that every morning, and especially before you do the pull request. And then once you have ready to push your code, just commit your code and do a pull request to your supervisor or whoever is reviewing the code reviewer, and then let them review the code and give you comment, deny it. Then you may need to go back and recode it, and once they approve, then you would be able to merge in down, like in the example how we did. Like then you would check out into your development branch, like what we did, and then merge with the future branch, so that you take all the code in the future and push it to your development branch. So we went one big cycle now, and we have pushed the code into the development branch, as we are seeing here on the Bitbucket. And next thing we would be looking at merge with conflict resource, like having conflicts. So that's an interesting topic that we would be looking next. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Next topic we are going to cover is resolve conflict. So let's go to the IDE now. So we are in the future branch now. So let me switch back to the development branch. So I'm going to say git check out develop. So now I'm in the develop branch, and I'm going to go here and add a new file called, let's say, sample.html. So I'm going to create an HTML called hello world. So I'm going to say h1 developer. So let's say this was something developer 1 did, and he merged the code. Let's say merge the code from a future branch to the development branch. So let's say someone did this code and they already merged something here, right? Like the developer wrote, came here and added, developer one added some awesome code. It was then he did a pull request, and the code was reviewed, and it is in the development branch. For the lack of time, I'm just not going to do all those because we went through that before. So I'm just going to directly check in into the development branch, which is not advisable, but for the simplicity's sake, I'm going to just do that. So I'm going to copy this because I might be adding the same code on the future branch with the developer too. So let's say git add. I'm going to add two commands in the same line. So I put an and sign to do that, and say added new code by the. So let me put it this way. So developer one did pull request and code review and merge to dev. That's what happened when this code comes here. So let's assume that, and I'm going to push this change to the development branch in the remote repository. So I'm going to push this. So if I want to make sure that it looks correct, I'm going to go to the development branch. I'm going to make sure that the sample.html has whatever we did. Now step 2 is like, I'm developer 2. I came early in the morning, and it is always a good practice to do this. So I came in the morning, and what I should do is I would be checked out in my future branch because I've been developing for many days in this branch now. I've been working so hard for let's say 10 days. So I am in my future branch working on it. So the thing is, every day you come in the morning, you should have to merge your future branch with the development branch because it's always a good practice. So let me show this to you, that you need to always take all the code that is in the development branch and push it to your future branch so that you have the latest code that other developers did a code review and checked in. So it's always a good practice to do that every morning. Okay, so for this use case, now we are in this future branch. Let me create the same this future branch doesn't have anything, so let's create the same sample.html. I'm gonna say HTML. Actually, what I could do is I could copy whatever we have here and put it over here, and let's say since I'm developer 2, I will say developer 2 change the code. So let's say you went and this third line you just changed to something else. So now your development branch and future branch is out of sync, right? Let's say this is your change you made. So you committed and added it. Feature 2 change 1, let's say. So you did add this to your future branch, and make sure you push it. So git push to your future branch. Just make sure that, just to confirm that your changes are over there, you could always go to your future branch and look at your code. It's there. So awesome. So we have the code that we need now. So, and you remember, like as I said, the future branch is different from the development branch on the line 2. Now you came in the morning. I'm going to clear this out. So you came in the morning, you just need to say git pull all branches. So that brings down everything that is committed by every developer in all the branches. So you're cool now. So you have everything there. So now you say, hey, I'm in my future branch. I want to pull down everything in the development and merge it. So you say git merge develop. Once you do that, it would show this, and it's so exciting to see this. And it's, I mean, sometimes people think it's harder to resolve. It's so easy. You just need to understand, and once you get used to, you know what you're doing. So it says that the current head is, which is the current commit, is pointing to your future branch, right? It says head, and it says this is what you have, the current change, but there was an incoming change that came from the development branch that says developer 1 added code. Now you could say, so what should you do now? So you could talk to the other developer 1 and say, you know what, I think my code should go, or he should say I think my code, or if you need to combine the code, whatever, you know, the resolve is. So I mean, this is the Visual Studio IDE has a lot of fun thing that would let you do a lot of these, and we're not going to get, I mean, let's say you are using a notepad, all you would say is this. So what you could do is that you would come here and say, yeah, that looks right. So I'm going to say, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take this out and this out. I'm going to leave both the code changes in this. So both the code changes are good to go. I added both the code changes, and I like what I changed. So I like to now check this in. So now you say, come here and say get status. So it looks like both added. It says, you know, you made both the changes. So now I can go and do whatever I do regularly. Let me clear my screen. So git add dot add git commit. I'm going to put in my message and say development. So merged come on. Okay, merge developer 1 code with developer 2 code. So that's what you did. You merged, and you say git push and origin future test 2. So what you did is, you just, to reiterate what we did, you just went ahead and pulled all the code from the development branch and merged into your future branch, and that this works perfectly fine. This is how it would work. So this is a very basic example of how would you resolve a conflict while you are in the development. And I think most of the time this is how you will be. Like, you'll be working on your future branch. Every morning you will come in the development branch, and I mean, whenever it is possible, I would say, not every morning. So whenever it is possible, pull down the code from the development branch and merge it into your future branch. So your current, as you're coding, adding new code to your future branch, so that you're current with your development environment. And this is the best way to resolve generally, so that you are up to date in your branch, so that when you do a code review or PR request, you don't have any conflicts. One more topic I want to cover is the other way around. So in this example, what we did was we pulled down the development branch into a future branch, and we had a conflict. But that is possible also, that let's say you checked in all the code and did a PR request, pull request, but the code reviewer did not do anything for a while, and all of a sudden he reviews the code and he sees a conflict on the page in the Bitbucket website, and he would come to you and say there is conflict, resolve it. So let's see that use case next though. So the last use case is about like little more making it complicated with the code merge. So what we are going to do is, I already set up the data for here. So if you go to the development branch and look at sample2 HTML, someone added this code, did their code review, and it's already there, okay, in the development branch. But you are, as a future branch, you let me refresh it. So in the future branch, this is not there, this file doesn't exist at all. Let me go ahead and add this. So I'm going to go here, make sure that my future branch, it has the code. I think I just added, I might have not pushed it, so I'm gonna say git status, and it's there. But see, there's one commit which is not yet pushed to the origin future. It says, and you need to keep an eye on this, so I didn't push that, so let me go ahead and push it, get push. And it's a good example to review this. Once you make your code change, and if you don't see it in the cloud, it's because you didn't push it. So let me go ahead and push this code change into the cloud, into your remote repository, which is Bitbucket in our use case. So now if you refresh this page, it should show that you just added another line of code to the existing code, which is a little different from the development, which has only one line. So now let's say you said, hey, I want to create a pull request. I just added another code. So you're going to go ahead and say, I want to do a pull request from this to my development branch, and that is I'm going to say sample2.html added one line of code. So you just want to do it. I'm going to name it a little fancy now, future2 sample test 2 HTML changes. So you did a pull request. But the fun part was, like, the person who is supposed to do the pull request did the code review, went for a vacation. So he went for a vacation, and what someone did was that someone went into your development branch and started making all sorts of changes, right? Like they just replaced this whole thing. Let's say they did not like anything about this, so they said, let's say span developer one new changes in code. So you just like made that change in the development branch, checked it in, committed it with a message. It's like a future 4, and he did a pull request and code review done, and he checked it in and he pushed all, he did the merge and all the fun stuff, and it's now in the development branch. So when your person comes from the vacation and he says, okay, let me do this code review, and he would say, uh-oh, looks like there is a conflict C, there's a conflict here, and he's not liking it. So he's going to decline this, and this is a good workflow. So I'm going to say ISC code conflicts, was in a vacation, could not review in time, please resolve conflict, and then send it for reviewing. So he just says, sorry buddy, I was supposed to review. And he can also see what conflicts and give a command, developer 1 did it, and these are the conflicts I see, and you can get fancy with that. But end of the day, he's going to decline this, saying, sorry, was in vacation, developer 1 changed some code. So he's gonna say, sorry about that, I would like you to go and fix it. So he ended up in declining it. So as a developer, you get an email. I know it's a little frustrating, but this happens though. So you go and see what's in the development branch. Okay, this is a change, and you check it out to see what's in your future branch, and that's a change. And then you say git pull all. Just make sure everything is pulled down. Git pull all. And then once you have everything, you would check out in your future branch and say git develop, merge it with my development branch, so that you resolve your conflict within your future branch before you do another pull request. So I'm going to do that. It's going to say, oh, you know what, like this is what you had. The developer want change this to something like this. What do you want to do? So I would say, you know what, like I would like to have the span, not the head anymore. And just I'm gonna delete all this fancy stuff that it adds to say what all came from which branches. So I'm gonna do that, and I resolve my conflict by now. So I'm gonna just make sure that git status, so it says, yeah, you did add all the you fixed it. It looks like you resolved it. So you could now go ahead and say git add dot and git commit uh, uh, resolve conflict with developer 1 on line 3. Say git push origin future test 2. So I did push my changes, and I did my part, and then I go and say again to do another pull request, or you could end up in approving the same pull request. I mean, it depends on what your company is following here. So I'm going to say I want to do this again to the development branch. I say work with developer 1 and fixed all the conflicts. So then you put the reviewer name and create the pull request, and you should not see any more conflicts because we just resolved it. So you should not see any icon, and you would be able to say, oh, that looks perfect. So this guy, he fixed that, and this is the one we were working on. The second one, I will ignore white space. I'm going to see side by side. This is the span. I moved the span for that, and I just added this line. Everything looked good, and you would go ahead and approve it. So now it's approved. You can go here, and again in this case you will check out git pull all, and then you should be not checked out in your future branch. You should be checked out in your develop branch. If you remember it right, git checkout develop branch, because git branch, I'll explain that again, because you would be in your development branch now, merging everything in future into your development branch. So you're going to say git merge future test2, so that your development branch gets the changes that you made in the future branch. So that's all, you're done.